Hey everyone, welcome back. It's Lucid, and with me again I have Sai.
Hi, this is Sai. I'm once again with Lucid, and it looks like we've got a novel from Pythium.
Oh gosh. Are they all this long? I don't know if I can read. Okay, Jesus Christ.
You want me to read them?
Okay, yeah.
All right, turn 19. Well, we've made it thus far, so I wanted to pause a little and send over a couple updates. The war with Atlantis is petering out for us. We were only ever in it to secure the lake at night and a bit more land to move the border. It would have been bad if another UW power had got the lakes, so we have hopefully blocked that off while we find a way to get underwater. Initial plan was to use the mercs, but Pan got them. Dude sure does love mercs. It's like Carthage over there. Nice reference.
Yeah.
That's the second
Yeah.
Punic War reference we've seen.
Yeah, that's
And they're
awesome.
not even from the same player. Anyways, for us, the main aim of fighting Atlantis was to gain some land. We should end up around 20 provinces and keep our forces relatively intact. We've done this quite well, so we should be bringing quite a lot of killing power to the caves of our next target, Agartha. Okay, he's doing exactly what you'd suggested.
Mm-hmm.
Turn 20, we will begin the countdown of our nap with Agartha. So turns 20, 21, and 22 will be the rundown. Attacks to resolve start turn 23. Timing here is crucial. Waiting a turn gives us a chance to watch the climactic fight between Atlantis and Erythia, so if there is a problem or opportunity, we can change plans. I've noticed that TNG has still not taken Midgard's cap. That I'm hoping that this will make TNG reluctant to intervene in our attack on Agartha. Again, it's the timing here. Turning around from Atlantis, while he is still not finished off as a risk, but I think it's a reasonable one to take, and it gives us the jump into Agartha before Agartha can be ready and before his ally can help. It's the right decision. So that's actually interesting in that he assumes that Erythia is going to be doing the heavy lifting in this war and taking Atlantis' cap, which is a very reasonable assumption because they're the one that
Right.
stands to gain the most from it, and they should be the ones, committing to it, given that they have the mage support and presumably even a build to do so.
Right. But they have been showing a bit of hesitance in fully
Yeah.
committing. So
Our other neighbor Arco remains in conflict with Ulm, a messy war there, one we intend to stay out of. In a few turns, we will welcome Eri as a neighbor. That's nice. I'm not too concerned about fighting Eri. His hoplites will melt under foul vapors. No, they shouldn't. And he cannot paint PR anywhere near as much as we can. Okay, yeah. It takes some doing, but Erythia absolutely can paint poison resistance. It typically
yeah.
involves, annoying stuff like either indie mages with crystal matrices or shambler skin on pearl mages, but it's by no means impossible. And they have the research to do it, and they don't really need to spend nature gems on other things. So it tends to be something that they should be able to do reasonably well.
Right.
Okay. The great thing about nations like us is we can paint FE in every fight if we need to. Counter rating, big fights, whatever. And our opponent has to plan for it, and he has to pay for it. Okay, yeah. So he's talking now about the out eco advantage, which is actually fair because you need more nature gems to put up your poison resist buffs than it costs Pythium to cast Val Vapors because their poison resist buff is free and they have that bonus PR in their bless.
Yep.
So but that only really applies to big fights because you can also kind of, beat up raiding parties fast enough to just not die to it. So however you want to pay for the nature gem
Yeah, and foul
tax.
vapors and counter rating and stuff, you end up like nuking your own PD. So if they have any countermeasures, it can be like a little counterproductive.
Yeah. So he's being a little exaggerating, but only a little bit because his point is well taken that it is very cheap. It's something that they should actually be able to do very easily en masse.
Yep.
I forget how much we've told you about our plan for Mother Oak. I don't think they mentioned this one.
Yeah, I haven't heard about that.
It was something that I thought, since they have an awake researcher, it makes total sense for them to hit it.
Actually,
Okay.
yeah, you and I talked about it. They haven't talked about it. You had mentioned that's the only reason you could justify doing this awake researcher rather than an expander or something else.
Yeah. Well, that or hitting a super early timing and pushing a very early war, which they didn't do.
Right.
I think our tech will hit M Oak around 24, 25 or something like that. Okay, that's very slow.
Yeah.
But at least they're going to be able to cast it, I suppose. Because usually with Pythium, you kind of need to boost up your nature a little bit. So you need to hit like either Construction 6 or, yeah, you generally need Construction 6 for Moonvine plus Thistle Mace because you'll have only N3 base unless you get very lucky.
It doesn't look like they're using a... Do we know the paths on the god? Because it doesn't look like from this that they're going to be using the god to cast it. It looks like they've got a Nature 3 Serpent Priest, and then they're thinking about all the armor.
Blood Nature armor. Okay, so
yeah.
I actually forgot about the Blood Nature. So Blood Nature, they're going to make on their god. A Reveler can theoretically do it, but you need the boosters to make the booster.
Right.
So you do need some pathing on your god. In this case, their god is providing not the N5, but is providing the Blood Nature cross path.
Right.
So we'd be looking to trade over the next few turns for Blood Slaves to allow us to forge the armor. Yeah, 15 Blood Slaves is also not that much. You can just hunt your cap for it or whatever.
Yeah.
Currently have approximately 80 nature gems, but we will be doing a minimum cast. Yeah, you don't need to overcast it this early. I don't think the lobby will cooperate to take down Mother Oak. Yep. Enough people will not care that the remainder won't cooperate to dispel. Yep. And I think other nature powers are far enough behind in research and need too many boosters that they won't be able to overcast for a while. Vadiheim can do it because Vadiheim has native access to the other nature boosters. So they're a viable contender for it, and they have the nature gem income to overcast. But it might take them too long to get to that point where if they steal Mother Oak, they'll need to burn too many nature gems for it to be worthwhile.
Yeah, in my Vadiheim game, you can do it naturally, but you kind of have to get some good rolls to get there with your Gaija, and mine took forever to get the right rolls. So
you can do it with just nature 2. Because you can make
like
Moonvine,
getting all the boosters right and getting all the things, and like, do you need to wait till you have construction 6? It's a bunch of it's depending on the roles you get. That's why I'm not being specific, because I don't remember all the details, but I just remember it can take a while if you're not lucky.
Yeah, if you need construction 6 to get it, then that typically delays you quite a bit.
Right.
So we're feeling pretty good about that. Mother Oak will get us nearly 20 nature gem income, which in the late era is massive. Question is, what do we do with all the gems? Well, you could always spend nature gems. That's no problem.
Yeah.
Also, we rolled our first N1B1 Reveler, which is great, but then the lead burned down. So we are 500 gold down, which is annoying. But we'll try and trade for a few more blood to allow us to start spamming satyrs and maenads. For me, maenads will be super clutch. They will act as a distraction from the legions, and the sheer volume will mean other players are unsure of the size strength of our stacks. Plus, patrolling, etc. is super handy. They can't patrol. Yep. If we can get even 6 satyrs, that will shortly be a stack of respawn. Combine that also with soon to be 3 swamps, lots of respawn Hydra too. Yeah. So maenads are nice. Like, I do like having them. They're good seat strength. They're good evo bait. They're very comfy to bring around, but they do not patrol, and Pangea, or you don't get as many of them as Pythium the way you do with Pangea, because you have to actually try to get them using a summon that you have to summon with one of your very few blood mages. So the opportunity cost is actually relatively high. That said, the satyr is kind of nice just because he's also an assassin. So you kind of like have them sit around doing free spawn stuff, and then when you need to peel some off to be lifelong protection assassins or whatever, you can go do that.
I mean, you can, if you get a bit of a blood economy going, like if you had 100 blood slaves a turn and you were committed to turning that all into maenads, it's truly an unthinkable amount of maenads, though. Because
the limiting factor isn't the slaves. It's
you can empower, right?
Blood,
that's the thing.
I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Right. Like, once you actually have a blood economy somehow, it's actually ridiculous how many blood slaves you get. So, I mean, how many maenads you can get.
Yeah, but like putting that much effort into something that like can literally be a bad thing to have in battles,
right?
Doesn't seem worthwhile. Like, I like them in Pangea because they're free.
Right.
So like free is a great price to pay for anything. And it's useful to have siege staff. It's useful for, bait purposes, like I mentioned, but I wouldn't invest a lot of effort or blood stuff into doing it, especially given that as Pythium, you have kind of a hard time getting your blood economy going. And there are other things you can do with blood which are more immediately impactful.
Yeah. They're definitely a kind of questionable value, but you can potentially hit every province on your border with a maenad stack that you give 0 shits if it dies. Whether you want to do that or not, I think, is questionable. And like you said, it's not easy. It's not trivial getting there. It's a big investment, kind of. And then it's like, do you really want it?
I do like getting into blood as Pythium. I just don't think I would invest that much into the maenad side of it.
Right.
Yeah. Dominion. I mentioned before, we took Dominion 3. It's painful. But we're starting to get our Dominion a little stronger. Once we have the fort from Atlantis, we can add our 4th temple there. That will help. You need 5 for that extra point, but he's probably not getting contested too badly at this point.
Right.
Longer term, I feel like we almost need a battery of temples just spamming out temple checks. I wonder if our nature income could help that at all. Enchanted forests, perhaps.
Huh.
TNG is the Great Fear. Great Cat, strong mages. We'll need Alt 6 to start messing with any rating from him. Frozen Heart, Incinerate. Personally, I'd love to get some Lars to have a bit of, Larrys is the plural, to have a bit of fun as well. They can do all the buffs, but my Hydras are boring, and start talking about too expensive. Chill out, guys. It's also really important that if we do fight TC, then any big battles take place when we have enough troops mages to adequately defend the full width of a battlefield. That's a huge ask. But if we do that, we can grind him down. He simply can't keep up with us in terms of nature gems. Maybe for 1 or 2 fights, but not longer term. But really, any war with TNG will be won in the raiding stage of the game. Funnily enough, our combatancies have the same mat move as his cap. I assume he means Cav, so the gap here is not insurmountable. The real challenge will be the Cloud Trapeze Thugs and the Ancestor Smiths, and then the challenge will be Wailing Winds, but we aim to have additional weapons for when Wailing Winds is online. Right. So what TNG is going to be good at later in the game is spamming Wailing Winds to the same degree that Pythium spams Foul Vapors. And Wailing Winds is even better. Downside, of course, is it's very gem expensive, and his mages are naturally more expensive. And then the other thing is that you have to actually hit that. You have to hit Evocation 6. And right now, TNG is very behind in infrastructure.
Yeah.
So yeah, Pythium's looking very far ahead with this TNG prediction.
Yeah. I think it's fun to think about, but I feel like they're going to be big enough players, especially if participates in an Agartha war. Like, he and TNG are going to be big. Like, if they fight and somebody wins that cleanly, like, they're going to be kind of too big for the board. Like, people should be attacking them. So then it's like, the war would probably take place as part of like a 2v2 or something, like, I don't know. That war may not happen for a very long time.
Yeah, I do like that he's thinking about TNG's mid-game tools, given that TNG is going to be the one getting Midgard's cap.
Right. And, TNG actually has a decent nature. They have good nature mages, nature 2s, and they have decent nature income.
And they've been recruiting them already
right.
For their war with Midgard, which means they'll incidentally have them for poison resist buffs.
Right, and they're probably out site searching too.
Yeah. Frustratingly, our economy has still not got off the ground as much as we want. Losing a lab this turn really is a big blow. At this stage, I won a 2-4 on Rec Labs. That you went like 6. When we are a few turns off of that. Once you start to see 4 to 5 revelers per turn, then you'll know we've arrived at the party. Okay.
So it looks like he's really leaning into the Maenads, because the revelers.
Yeah, they're the blood random mages.
Yeah, they're these guys. So they're heretics, which is kind of interesting. And it's weird that if he's planning on spamming revelers, that he was talking about temple spam and stuff. Because if you have enough of these guys, like you're not gonna have a ton of dominion, especially if these are all over the place.
Yeah, you can actually use them to kind of insulate you against enemy dom push.
Right.
And since he has Agartha, which went full scales, he can actually try to soak that and get Agartha's nice scales and then heretic it down.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
But the other problem with the Revelers as opposed to the Misties is they have a larger research malice.
Right.
So they don't read books as well. And then they also cause turmoil.
Did they do that too? I don't.
Or not turmoil, unrest.
Oh, yeah. They cause some unrest too. Yeah.
Yeah,
that
so
makes
that adds
them
up.
Kind of tricky to use, especially if you're actually using them to like control dominion with the heretic, because you kind of don't want to put them in your nice provinces.
You do have other heretic mages though, like the revelers. Right. Yeah, like those guys are you basically.
These guys, yeah.
And those guys are actually potentially a little more useful, just because you don't have other fire mages.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, there's a lot of heretics. Too.
Yeah.
So
the Apoptes are also nice because they're your earth mages. Theoretically, the Misties can get it as well, but he actually recruited some Apoptes early, specifically for that earth random, I assume, because that's the only thing that made sense to me at the time that he did it. The other option is that he maybe had one of his old mages get 6 and he needed a disease healer.
Yeah.
But typically you just get the Misties just because they're the fastest. With Magic 3, they're 8 RP versus the 10 on Apoptes, and they take 1 turn rather than 2, and they cost less than half the gold. So just for that early research spam, those are your go-to mages. Yeah.
And the Revelers really are significantly less. Even in Magic 3, these guys are going to be 6. Yeah, that's compared to 8. That's a pretty big difference.
Yeah, you're paying more gold for less research and unrest.
Yeah.
But they are your blood economy. So you do still have to get them eventually. My mode of playing LA Pythium is, well, first of all, I like an expander, but if you're doing scales, you do something very similar where you focus on expansion first and you just drop labs. You want to drop 3 to 5 labs. And then you start putting up forts, as you need to protect stuff. Oh, abandoned lab is actually very nice for him.
Yeah. So he's got 2 labs now. In terms of troop movement, I don't think we see.
I think he just found that abandoned lab this turn.
He's got 2 revelers here. What are they doing?
Oh, those are the non-blood random guys. What are they doing?
Eagle skin. Vine arrow. Advancing cast. I think they were on attack Vine arrow.
No, they were on advancing Eagle Eye Barkskin advancing cast.
Yeah, but why didn't they cast it sooner? They waited till they got into melee to do it.
Oh, that's odd.
I think they were on attack, and then advancing cast. I wonder if they were trying to snipe like a thug or something. I don't know.
That's very weird.
Hopefully
Maybe they
he'll-
got bumped? No, because there's nowhere else where they would be going.
Yeah, they chose to be here.
Yeah, that's very weird. I have no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, the other interesting way to use all these heretics is when you're if you have them embedded in your army, like if you have 10 of these guys, like 10 heretics embedded in your army, and you attack somebody, you'll pretty much insta-gib all their candles. Like you'll be fighting in neutral dominion a lot of the time.
Yeah, pretty nice for fighting against pretenders, and also is going to be nice in this particular matchup for the temperature swing.
Right. So, okay, he's popped this fort, and that's really significant. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, and Atlantis can't defend that. There's nothing within sailing range.
Speaking of Atlantis, they have deployed the Ghost King for the first time. And let's take a look at the kit. Okay.
Coral Blade, okay. Just bonus
So
hit
this
points.
is interesting. The Ice Age is pretty good shield with 8 parry, but it gives ice protection 1. That's the significant bit.
I was about to say, like, ice protection, it's one of the few sources of protection that stacks fully with armor.
Right. So this is like, actually, if you were to put like bracers on them too, you really can have just a ridiculous amount of base protection without any natural, right? Because this is in Cult 3 going to give you 3 armor protection.
Yeah, with that, bracers and legions of steel, plus his own like self buff, this guy can get into solar rays tanking territory.
Yeah, and he's very high. Let's see what he casts.
Iron
the thing I
Skin.
don't love about it is he's going to be very hard with the high parry too of the.
Does he die to lightning bolts?
Yeah, he probably would.
Okay. So advance and cast Erythian mages in a communion can kill this guy.
Yeah.
Assuming he has the tech and enough mages for it.
So he's done Iron Skin. So he's up at 33. But yeah, Legions of Steel and whatever, he could probably get pretty close to 40 if he chose to. So he now has neutral lightning resistance, but has resistance to everything else.
Yeah, the problem with neutral lightning resistance is that 14 damage is going to stun you pretty reliably.
Yeah.
What's his regen?
I think it's 20. I mean, at 10, sorry. Which
Okay,
is,
yeah, at 10% regen, that's 13 hit
9.
points. Oh, no, oh, right, because he's fighting outside of his dominion. Okay,
Yeah.
so 9 hit points.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, given that lightning casters will miss you, you actually do need a fair number of mages to kill this as Erythia.
Yeah. The thing I don't love about it is it's not very killy, and I don't love that he didn't bring a Water 2 mage to put quickness on it. He clearly has the research.
I don't hate that because it's gonna get rid of stuff like Fear Aura. Like he's not planning on killing Erythia's army fast
You want to
enough.
kill it. Like, you want these things to be gone. You don't want them to come back later with more mages. Like, because Erythia also controls a lot of the land. Like, the retreating stuff is almost like 80% of the time gonna live.
I see. Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so he is casting solar rays, but the king actually does have enough protection for this.
Yeah, he's tanking it pretty well. Let's take a look at what some of these last hits were here. He got hit for 2. This was from a crossbow. Let's see what the 10 was. Yeah, here we go. Solar rays for 10. With a pretty big damage roll of 18.
Yeah, and since this guy's fatigue neutral, he shouldn't be getting too many armor negating hits. Okay, so solar rays is chipping him. Right now he's not regenerating though because he's still above his max HP. So okay, now we're seeing him regenerate. So he can tank these guys. There's just not enough mages here to clear him out.
Right. We have a whole, and this guy's switching between solar rays and holy word, which kind of sucks.
Okay, so he's advancing cast. Oh, they are advancing cast. Okay.
Yeah.
That's not awful. They just don't have the union set
3
up.
casters here. And this guy isn't a reliable caster because he's doing holy word a lot. So you really have 2 reliable casters. Now he's scared a bunch of the guys, a bunch of the crossbowmen.
Yeah, lightning bolt would have been much more effective, and on advancing cast they would actually have defaulted to it. And that also would have reduced Erythia's casualties.
Right.
But in order to do that, you would need a lot more mages because you actually need to communion up the air mages.
Right. And
yeah,
it
with
didn't
holy
take
word,
very long. I guess 40 turns to fear out the army, but he's hardly killed anything.
Yeah, I think Erythia also could have done this with just quantity. Like if he didn't want to do a communion and he just wanted to bring a bunch of astral mages.
Yeah.
He could have killed it that way as well, but you just need like a
You probably need
significant
like 6 solar rays casters, or maybe 7.
Yeah, or more, right? Because he was basically barely doing chip damage, and you want to be able to kill it fairly reliably in order to make sure that you don't lose your army to unlucky morale rolls.
Yeah, you could do a bit more. And if he did stack protection higher, like if he had a bracer protection,
Yeah,
and
you
some other
can't hit the
things.
point where Solar Rays just stops working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's 12 AP, right? Which he's already above. Like you're already in the chip damage territory for it. So Independence coming in to attack Atlantis afterwards too. Some villains. I think
Yeah,
we know
it
this
is.
is gonna go.
It does scale, but it doesn't scale like super hard.
Right.
So you in a
Is
big
it 1
communion,
damage?
it can still be threatening. Yeah, it's 1 per extra level above 2.
Yeah. So
Yeah, so in a big communion, it can like become threatening again, but Arythea, again needs to pull out his wallet and actually pay for it.
right. And that is probably, that and Lightning Bolt, which Atlantis has air mages. They could put a Ring of Tamed Lightning. I don't think as a strategy, especially if I knew this guy was in the cap and is going to like roll out and fight me, I wouldn't assume that it's not going to have a Construction 0 like shock resistance item on it. So I wouldn't plan on Lightning personally, but like we were saying, if you communion them up to do Lightning, they can also do Solar Rays. So
yeah, if you just communion them up and have them do advance and cast, they'll just cast whatever they think is best.
Right.
And that's oftentimes good enough.
Yeah.
Like for this specific role.
So here's the thing. He routes the army, but what damage is done?
About 300 something damage.
And they're
Plus,
all here.
whatever.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Plus, whatever failed their rolls, which is probably not going to be that many.
So I think this is tricky because, like, I think that there's a few things that I think I would, and I was kind of talking about them before, but the things I would really want to change on this. First of all, definitely have a quickness caster. 2, I haven't tested, so I don't know if it's possible. The Ice Aegis is a great choice. However, I really like the idea of having 2 weapons just to be more killy. And I think you should also use some of the miscellaneous slots for like a dancing trident or whatever that thing is called. Like you just need to be killing more stuff. What's the other? Isn't there one more weapon item you can put here?
The bird.
Oh yeah, the stone bird.
Yeah, the stone bird is mostly about being a super repel item, though.
Right.
I mean, it also does damage, but it's
right
incredibly good at repel.
It's going to kill a crossbowman every turn that it's in range. But that with quickness, you'd kill 4 guys a turn probably, or pretty close to that, 3.5 guys a turn. Or no, quickness would be like almost 7 guys a turn, potentially. So I don't know. If you can do that and have the protection buff, and protection tank Solar Rays, I think it's a lot safer because especially when you come in with 130 hit points, like when you're killing that many things a turn, unless they have like some chaff generation, you're going to be able to like kill the whole army in like 15, 20 turns. You don't have to tank it all the way out to turn 40.
Yeah, so the thing about Stonebird in particular, though, is it's a Construction 6 Air Earth, so it's a little hard to make.
Right, yeah, so that's not available. I thought it was, I think really Construction 6?
I think so.
It can't be.
I can double check.
It's not. It's not. I don't think. I don't remember if it's 4 or 2, but
it's
6.
2. Okay,
yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah. Can Atlantis make it? I forget how lucky they have to get. It might be a 10%.
Yeah, I think they need 10%. So very rare.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super rare.
It's like 1 out of 80, I believe.
Yeah. But he could probably trade for it. Like Ulm can make them super easy.
Yeah, that's fair.
So
I actually thought 4 was high level. Yeah, at Construction 2, that's very doable. Is it the shield that's higher?
What shield?
The Dancing Shield. No, the Dancing Shield is Construction 4 as well. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. All right. Yeah, so that would definitely help him clear out a bunch of chaff. And then the other good items are just the good old brands.
Yeah.
Still very effective against humans. They even have a little bit of plus defense.
That's a great point.
And Atlantis can definitely make them on his own.
It's a little early because Frostbrands are Construction 4. It's a little early for a Frostbrand to be out. But
yeah,
that would be a big upgrade. The thing is I think like this is I think this like is misunderstanding how to use a Titan in a way, in that like you don't really want to take a Titan and like parade around with them because all Titans are killable, especially in a game of this skill level. So you want to like jump on an army and like do a decisive action. And in this case, like he's done it. He's done the decisive action. The thing is it wasn't decisive because everybody just retreated and lived. So, and it's going to be hard for him to take another fight because he has to basically, like, because he's normal phase moving, like they could have moved more mages in here. He didn't actually know what he was walking into.
Yeah. Lack of magic phase movement is one of the, or rather, to put it the other way, magic phase movement is, in my opinion, a requirement for a super combatant build.
Yeah, for a
Even
god.
if you're doing, if you're doing something like a Scratty or whatever, the god version, like for Utgard and Jotunheim, you essentially always want to add the air path onto it for basically exactly that reason.
Yeah. So I think this is like, on one hand, it's like, yay, he used it, which is great. But on the other hand, he didn't actually accomplish anything except give Agartha like a lesson in what they need to do to deal with the Ghost King. So
yeah, I mean, he regained his cap circle, he chased that army away, but it really was an undercommitment from Agartha that made that possible.
Yeah. But, the counter thing is if he were able to kill half of this army, right? Like if he were able to kill like 130 units and just chomp through them, then like that actually may swing the war. Like, because at that point, maybe Atlantis can muster enough troops that he could like sail on top of a fort and Agartha might not have things to respond to it very well or something. Like how much do you need to kill to actually swing the war? And we're very far away from that right now.
Yeah, I don't know if even 130 would be enough.
Yeah.
It would definitely help. It would help a lot more than the number that he killed there, right?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously more bodies, more gooder.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's very much behind. But he does have that one underwater fort open. So we'll have to see if he's able to use those Frost Fathers or Forgiving Fathers effectively.
So, and what we were kind of saying when we started looking down here was that we don't think, and because I don't think he has any foot gear on, we don't think the god can make it up here to this fort. And this is also with the advance and cast dust to dust cast. There's probably going to be a harder army to fight. So,
yeah, for all that Pythium was saying that, he wants to grab the easy stuff and go home, he's in a much better position to kill Atlantis than Agartha is right now. Just on account of Atlantis's build more than anything else.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's pretty fair. I mean, I think Agartha can kill the Ghost King reasonably easily, but they need to really bring, they just bring 15, 20 mages, which is not a casual amount at turn 19.
Yes, it's doable, but it does require that you actually pull everyone off of lab duty,
right?
Which he seems very reticent to do. Like, we saw how many mages were in that army, and compared to how much infrastructure Agartha has, that it's just not a heavy investment.
Yeah. Okay, so that's this war. Let's pull up the messages again. We didn't get anything from those folks. Let's do the Miklin war now. So, selling gems for gold with Zabalba, as long as we keep our palisade unsieged, we can convert gold very efficiently into jags or troops. Might have a big battle next turn depending on how Pan-Gath move. Toldi. This turn should now be a 50-50 on whether we outright lose or not. Let's get the easy stuff out of the way. Vedheim moves into 133, Gath into 148. Our fort at 139 can defend itself against that very specific Vedi party. Our capital can defend itself against the Gath party at 164. This leaves us 2 vanguards. Their best move is simply to move on to the forts and force a fight. Toldi gave me full power of choice on which fight to take. The Pan army is significantly weaker than the Gittite one. I think we would take it with negligible losses fighting over our fort at 142. However, there are some issues. The Pan player tends to be more greedy and defensive, maybe cowardly. There's a significant chance that he patrols in place. If we fight him in place, we lose as Gath caps us.
Who's the Pangea player?
We'll have to look at. Let me pause. Okay, we looked it up, and the Pangea player is Warp PC. I can't remember if I played with him before. But Sai, you were just saying he's a longtime player. I know he's very, very frequent on the Discords. Like I see him around all the time. I just don't know him that well.
Yeah, I basically have the same thing. Like I know he's been around since forever, so a very experienced player, but I don't have enough experience playing against him to really get a gauge of his play style.
Yeah. If we fight him in place, we lose his Gath. Okay. If we move to our fort and Pan patrols, we lose as Gath caps us. Assuming we win, we lose our northern fort, and Gath potentially places our capital under siege. I'll take the bet here that my best play is to fight the Gittite army head on. There will be heavy losses if all those slingers fire on our Jaguar warriors for too long. So many losses we may not win burst pan. It'll be a massacre if the slingers take the bait. Play a good theme song for the fight. Okay. And we don't have much of a message from anybody else in the coalition except Vedheim. Long overdue message from Al. So the Gath-Pan-Vedi coalition to kill Miklin has been in the works for a while. Miklin tried to buy us off with the vague, if we go down, we'll give you a death basket offer, and we turned that down. They also tried to buy us off with the Iron Throne, but they gave it to Zabalba to buy them off. Sneaky Diplo by Toldi, of course. But it didn't stop us from helping out the coalition. We're still firmly on team Murder the Murder Kitties, but now that also includes Zabalba, presumably because he's pissed that Zabalba took that Iron Throne.
Yeah, I don't know if he's so much committed to a war with Zabalba, so much as he kind of sees Zabalba as acting in Miklin's favor by grabbing that, and that he's not content to leave it. So I don't expect like all-out war just because it's a little awkward. Zabalba definitely doesn't want to do that, right? Because he's still dealing with Jomen. And Vedheim would actually have a relatively like long and very weird border with Arco if he were to go pursue that war. So it's not great long term. Like they're probably not gonna,
he's talking about it right beneath this in long term ways.
I think that what he's saying is more assuming that it actually comes to conflict rather than that this is plan A.
Okay. So that fight is even more temperature sensitive than the one versus Miklin, since bats are cold-blooded. We can't cast Wolf in Winter without a Water Empower or a Robe of the Sea, and our vendor for one of those is having supply chain problems, not yet Construction 4. So we're going to still prosecute the war versus Miklin, raiding west of the cap according to the original plan, while Gath and Pan attack from the north and east. But we're prepping up for a smash and grab on the Iron Throne too. Oh, so maybe there's more what you're saying. Consisting of point-buffed berserkers, we hit Alt-4 next turn. We might wait until the fort finishes, but we could strike as early as next turn. We're also planning to take the province between the Iron Throne and Zabalba's cap with the stealth squad to cut the double move from the cap toads. Okay.
Yeah, he's basically saying it makes it take too long for the units to get there to reinforce.
Little does he know there's no toads.
Yeah. All bats.
Right. Bat or bust. Time will be heavily on our side after that. We can temple, claim the throne, preach a little, get the little Holy One mages to get it cold, and then 80 Rimvedi, supported by buff mages, can keep the province safe while we get our own fort up. We're not trying to all-in Zabalba, but we want the throne that he stole. Okay, so you were right here, actually.
And it kind of makes sense, just like looking at the map.
And we have a message from Gath, who's, of course, another member of the coalition war in the Miklin coalition war. Now we have a real problem, folks. About 140 Jags, 40 Rain Warriors, 20 Eagles. Were there 20? I thought there were 10.
Yeah, looks like only 10. But,
Plus,
he should also be producing them every turn at this point.
Yeah, plus mages and priests. I have no real means to beat this Doomstack with my current research or mages. At least, I can't think of any reliable ones. My current setup of Merc frontline plus Horde of Slingers with Strength of Giants and Luck inflicts heavy losses but almost always loses. Sleep Cloud doesn't work well enough with archery. Interesting. Flaming Arrows doesn't add enough in practice to be worth it. Blade Wind does work, but I don't have Evocation and don't plan to research it anytime soon. Also requires a reasonable amount of Earth 2s, which I don't have. I will continue thinking, though. One thing that does work almost reliably is a Gadol with Moss Body and 36 protection. It requires...
So what swings it for the slingers, like what can allow them to win that fight, is added protection buffs, where you want either mass protection or Marble Warriors, though, in order to actually make that good. So that's even later in the game than the stuff that he's talking about.
Right.
So like eventually slingers can beat Jags, like in terms of like cost effectiveness. Early game right now, they're still probably the most effective unit that Gath can make against them. But without a bless, there's not really anything that can actually trade gold for gold.
Yeah. One thing that does work almost reliably is a Gadol with Moss Body and 36 protection. It requires fluffing, though, which means that flyers might kill the fluffers. That's not a problem if you get, like, the fluffs off in turn 1, and you don't need that much.
He just doesn't want to sacrifice 2 mages, because you need regen and Moss Body. Yeah. And ideally you want enlarge as well. So that means you need, like, 3 mages, generally.
Okay, well, that might HP route the Gadol, too.
Yeah, it won't instantly HP Artha Godol because they do have more than twice the hit points of all the human mages combined.
Yeah.
But it does make it very close if it takes any chip damage.
Yeah. And also, it will only work once I go this route. This time, when Miklin sees it... Oh, wait. And it will only work once if I go this route. This one time, when Miklin sees it, it should be the one decisive battle. I like how he's thinking here. And that's tricky to orchestrate.
And that's also how you use Titans, right? Like you were saying, you use them as the one battle, you win that battle, and then you go on. Right. And a Godol's actually a great option for that. It can do most of the stuff that Titans do.
Yeah.
The Astral ones can even magic phase.
Yeah. Vediheim suggests to wait until the winter, until he gets Woven Winter and can cast it to point buff Rim Vedi. But that's all way too long, and not really reliable, because while Miklin has his Doomstack, he may choose fights. I understand that other people want someone else to fight it. I also do, but I don't want this war to continue for forever. How freaking strong is a nation that 3 other nations can't do anything with this? Clearly suboptimal Doomstack on turn 18. What if we waited longer and he got more power?
Yeah, I don't know. I think with like a real Hellblast Miklin, where they can actually beat 2 armies at once, then they can start going offensive into the coalition and like force those fights. This Miklin can't do that. Like, there's definitely stuff to cook. Pangaea probably already has a stack if he is willing to deploy all of his sages that can beat the Jaguars. Gath probably doesn't, in part because he doesn't have the ability to just pull out all his lab rats because his lab rats aren't mages, right?
Right.
So like magic scales Gath kind of can, because you can actually do a bunch of stuff with Sibyls. They're not great, but you can have a bunch of web spammers, for example.
Right.
And you also have much broader luck applications on. So like the traditional scales Gath where you go magic 3 does have some tools that they can deploy en masse in order to actually swing this fight, which this particular Gath build doesn't. But yeah, Pangaea definitely can beat it. Vediheim, if they deploy everything and are fighting in the right temperature, can beat it. So I think he's
so this
a little doom and gloom.
Yeah. I mean, he's not. This doesn't even really have anything to do with the 3v1 in his message. He's like, how freaking strong is the nation if 3 other nations can't do anything with this? Like, what does that mean? Like, he's talking about literally whether he can beat a single, like an all-in stack from Miklin with everything he's produced all game. And if he can't beat it cleanly, he's like, Miklin's broken. Like, I don't think that's the right logic at all. Like, it's not like his logic doesn't even hold up, because it's like, if he does this thing, I'm pretty sure Pan will have no trouble with the leftovers. Like, if both these stacks move here.
I will say, though, that a Hellblast Miklin can very reliably rush Gath, regardless of the Gath build, unless they have a very specific Awake Titan, specifically to kill Sacreds.
Right.
And even then, it's hard. Whereas, like, nothing that Gath has natively in either its, unless Gath goes its own Hellblast, which still loses to Miklin, but isn't like quite as a steamroll. But like any sort of like modest Gath Bless or a Scales Gath build absolutely does get stomped by Jaguars.
Yeah.
But that's true of a lot of nations. Like Hellbless nation in general should be good early game against Scales nation in general, right? Pangaea being kind of an exception because they have various little tricks that they can use in order to swing these and very efficient troops, right? Like you don't want to rush the Seducer nation as a Hellbless nation just because that's begging for things to go wrong.
So we don't really get a lot more intel. We just see this stack here, which is about 160 Benjamite slingers and then some crossbowmen and chaff. Mostly ranged units, and then we get a ping on this as well. Significantly fewer slingers.
That's his main stack, actually, because that's the one with the mages.
Right. And then we get to see what Miklin has. This isn't everything, but we see it. This is what's strange is I think this stack could have, 163. I think he was saying...
So Gath had a smaller stack on 164 last turn, right? Because he'd moved up like that split squad. So he's not expecting to fight Gath's army until it consolidates, and he expects Gath to go for his capital first, not the northern fort.
I don't understand this. Like,
so Miklin's thinking for what Gath is going to do is to consolidate in his cap circle, and to then, like, in that province, and then to send a smaller force to put that fort under siege in order to cut off reinforcements so he can go for the cap.
Yeah, I just don't understand why you would commit mages.
Oh, yeah, that I don't understand either.
Because you need to either have them blood hunting or whatever. Like, why have mages where you don't have sacreds?
Yeah,
Doesn't
and
make
he
sense
does have
to
the
me.
sacreds in that fort, so he could have done a move patrol.
Right.
So that is very unusual.
Yeah.
I don't love that move either. And
Because
yeah,
these things are actually kind of important. Like Miklin needs slaves to spam imps, and he needs to get those, and he needs the mages too. Like
the other thing is that if Gath had gone all in that turn and like
Right.
actually tried to pop that fort, he would have lost. And then all of the sacreds are stuck in that fort, and then Gath actually can go on his capital.
Right. Yeah. If he gets these, you can. This is one of the main things too about like initiative. Initiative is really important in a coalition war when you're the coalition target. That's why, like, when somebody gives you the opportunity to take a major fight that you think you can win, that's why I'm like, you have to take it, because that's a way to seize initiative. Getting all of your sacreds pinned up inside of a fort, like, you might as well just like start destroying your forts. Like, if Gath were to put this fort under siege, like Miklin would lose all agency and initiative, right? Because then the Gath army can take every single province, move on top of any fort. Pangaea can move on forts. And by the time you get the guys out, which, by the way, you're going to have to use all of your mages to do, because for all you know, Gath may choose to storm, right? And you have to be ready to fight. So no research, no blood hunting. So you have to use all your mages to get out. But the turn you get out, if he moves onto your capital and Pangaea moves here, like, you're definitely losing a fort.
You're not just losing a fort. You can also lose stuff that you try to send from Miklin to reinforce.
Right.
So yeah, it might be that he just messed up somehow and didn't patrol with what he needed to. But yeah, that's a very dangerous partial patrol to do.
Right. And the coalition players are basically slowly constricting Miklin out. And while he can still make sacreds, we don't actually see sacreds getting made in this fort. We don't see many getting made here. So I'm not...
No sacreds made at all, actually, in the farm fort either. Those are just mages.
Right. So I don't know what's going on, but I don't think I like it.
Can you check the Pan army, see if there's centaur sages in there yet?
We can't see any. I was actually looking at that earlier. Yeah.
Yeah, so if you check the research graph, if Pangaea's research is maintaining its level or accelerating, that means he hasn't deployed his mages.
Pangaea, here we go.
It dipped. Okay, so he did move some mages out.
Right.
We don't know if they're in this army yet, but he has some mages pause reading. It might just be consolidating.
I think they're probably in this army because they're pretty mobile, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, they're very fast boys.
And yeah, if that's the case, we also know Pangaea's next move. Now, Miklin is not privy to this information because he can't see score graphs. But if he's moved the mages, he's definitely going to attack, because you don't pull the mages and then not attack. So he's probably going here.
Yeah, and with that fort being essentially abandoned, it seems like a pretty safe move.
Right. This fort, if I haven't said it 6 times already, I do not like. It should be...
It is within map move range of his other forts, though.
Yeah, sort of, but like...
It can get cut off, but naturally
off.
it's in map move range.
Yeah. I'm not, is it in all circumstances in map move range? Like, if the enemy sieges it, can you move into a hostile territory through forests with everything you need to?
Oh, that I don't know, because their guys aren't that fast.
14. They do have
but they
survival.
can all, yeah. I think you need... I think their mages are 16, but regardless, it's within
They definitely won't
range.
with cold, but I can't remember. It's 12 for friendly.
Yeah, so even with cold, they can reliably move into it, defensively.
Right.
But I don't think they can do it offensively.
Yeah, I don't think they can either, which, that could matter. But yeah, anyway, we talked about the adjacency thing before. Let's go to the next. Is there anything you want to cover here? Oh, wait, we have some pings here.
Well, he mentioned the specific army that Zabalba or that Vediheim sent, but that's not an army. You haven't seen Vediheim's army yet.
Yeah.
And apparently Zabalba's the one who is going to use his actual army against first, which is interesting. But it makes total sense.
Yeah.
Because that fort is his big prize from this war, and probably even like a relatively significant reason for why he went into it in the first place.
Yeah.
So there's no way he can tolerate Zabalba taking it.
Yeah. Okay, so I don't think there's much else to say. There's still the opportunity for Miklin to come out of this. We see there's a couple, we think the Mage Corps here is here. This is probably no longer an easy fight. So that window to stomp this army is probably passed. But Gath has divided his army right in front of you, and you have the opportunity to try to fight it. You also risk running into it if you know, like you could go here and you could combine.
Because you know what Gath has, you move out against it.
Right. I think the hesitancy is like, oh, there's no PD here at all. But the hesitancy might be there's a PD dock plus other things, and you know you're going to come out of this fucking bleeding. But I don't think that, I think you're right. I think it doesn't matter. I think you have to take the fight.
And the thing about Gath's army also is that because you know that this is during Gath by this point, you also know that there's no, like, surprise, all of my research mages are now in the fight. Right. Whatever mages Gath has are sight searching or doing battle. Like, he doesn't have a stable of 12 more mages to bring out.
Right.
And with Pangea, one thing that I like to do, not even like just defending against coalition, but just in general, is when there are armies on the move, I like to ping them as often as possible.
Yeah.
So with a nation that has like lots of raiding parties, you can kind of do a twofer of like, is this province being defended? If not, I can take it. If I can at least see what the army comp is. This early in the game, and especially in LA, you just want to attack these things with scouts.
Yeah. And especially when the main vulnerability of this army was not having mages, we need to know when they show up. It's a really big deal. Because unlike Gath, Pangea has a stable of mages, quite literally, that they can roll out.
And they're also very fast, so they can get there from, 3 provinces away.
All right, so let's go to the TNG conflict next. Well, what a surprise. I certainly didn't expect Midgard to abandon their capital and seek plunder in Agarthan lands. I think Kosk will not have realized how badly my army composition does against lucky Einheirs.
Well, he also just didn't have enough Einheirs left. That was the big thing.
Yeah.
They'd suffered too much attrition in the previous major battle against Agartha.
Yeah, I think TNG is doing a little bit of that shadow boxing, right? Where he's playing against the specter of Midgard that, like the worst case scenario, which isn't really realistic always. Meanwhile, apparently my prophet was so excited about the advertised love and the plunder that he smote the defending hearse round 1, so I didn't need to bring all the ancestor vessels to siege that second fort.
Nice. We didn't catch that, but very lucky.
I think I remembered seeing the army basically insta-route, though.
Yeah, I guess that's why.
Yeah. In any case, we're moving to claim Midgard with as much siege power as we can muster. Its income will be greatly appreciated.
Yeah, so the two things that Midgard brings are it's a citadel, so 3 mages per or 1.5 mages per turn, and air gems, which are very high value on TNG.
Yeah. Woo! That is an army.
Yeah. I mean, when your army covers the whole breadth of the battlefield, your positioning tends to be a little easier. Yeah, no, we kind of seen before that Midgard's province defense, even this boosted to 45 PD, it's just not going to kill anything.
Wow, they're targeting this guy. Oh, it's a commander. Okay. They really don't like this one commander.
That's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, this is very much enough webbing.
Okay, why are they targeting? Oh, he doesn't have Aerofend. Okay. It's understandable. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say it's the protection differential.
Okay, yeah.
But yeah, even if Midgard had rode out with everything that he did have in range, this should have still been a very one-sided fight.
Yeah. Luck is also pretty good against a few a few very hard-hitting things in general. Like getting plinked down by 1,000 arrows. Luck isn't amazing against that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, TNG does not have a Ghost Plus, so those ancestor spirits aren't that impressive.
Yeah. So, didn't kill the Volva. Lost 8 dudes, 2 ancestor vessels. And they've got Midgard's cap under siege. The question is, where did Midgard go? Apparently, Midgard has a bit of a rage boner for Agartha.
I think it's more, I think at least part of it at this point has to be that this is where he can do damage.
Right.
If he fights TNG, he just loses. TNG gets a good fight, maybe.
Yeah.
Whereas if he keeps fighting Agartha, he can actually make the player suffer. Or the nation suffer, I should say.
And he's doing that. I mean, he's taken this province now. Okay, he fails here. This is going to be an interesting little raid. This is a pretty high commitment from him, too. It's like 10
Yeah,
bins.
I think that this is just a PD dump of sufficient value
Yeah.
for the size of the raiding party. Oh, that's his thug, actually.
Yeah.
I am a little surprised then, because I figured that guy should have no problem against conventional troops. Do you think he just gets HP routed by his units retreating?
So this guy died. This is the thug.
Oh, that's okay. So that's not the guy with armor. Yeah. So without armor, he can actually definitely still die.
One of these guys is run. Did all these guys get blessed? They're looking pretty low HP. I'm wondering. I'm guessing they all got blessed. If they didn't get blessed, the Thunder Whip would kind of wreck them, but...
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's just a matter of a bunch of heavy cavalry.
I think it's the crossbows, actually, but it might be the heavy cav, too.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like 30 crossbows back here.
Oh, yeah.
But I'm still surprised, too. Like, when I pulled this battle up, I'm like, okay, like, how is Midgard going to lose this? Elves really do not like standing there and hitting high protection units, which they hardly do any damage to, while they take crossbow bolts.
And I think that just a solo Vanhurst with the protection gear that he gave to that Galderman could have taken that province.
Maybe.
Because the commander can do air shield, right?
Yeah, but I think it depends.
So
he's going to have to tank a lot of crossbow bolts, though. Maybe with the armor.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Armor, air shield. He already has a
mist
shield,
form.
not a great shield.
If he had mist form, which he does have the research for with the gem.
Yeah, he needs to burn a gem. Yeah. So you can very easily thug a Vanhurst to be immune to conventional troops.
Right.
Like with the stuff that he already has.
Yeah. So, and then Midgard raids over here. So, I mean, this was meaningful attrition, and he has chosen to abandon his capital, but I think, like you're saying, you've given him he's been given a choice. He can't really defend against this army, and this is really the only place he can do damage.
Yeah, I think it's respectable.
Yeah.
Like, on the one hand, he's losing, right? Like, this obviously isn't a game-winning decision. But on the other hand, you don't win the game from this position, so...
Yeah, that's fine.
The best case that Midgard can do is maybe go set up a colony.
But Kosk, I've played with him several times. He tends to have grudges a little bit.
Okay.
So there is a grudge flavor in this that is consistent with my experience with the player, but I think this is like perfectly reasonable too. So
if the coalition against Agartha materializes, or I shouldn't say coalition, if the group of people ganging up on Agartha materializes that Pythium had been talking about, then Agartha should be basically getting eaten. So there is a chance of Midgard surviving as a little colony somewhere.
That would be really funny. He's going to need a fort, though, because you can't trace income without a fort. And that's going to look a little rough.
Well, I mean,
maybe as an Earth Mage, he finds a site that gives him a
someone can
fort.
just donate him the 700 gold or whatever to pay his troops plus a fort.
I don't know if we'll have that kind of chivalry in this game, but we can look forward to it. Now, this is interesting.
Uruk survives as a one-nation petting zoo in our finals.
That's true.
There's still hope for Midgard.
There's still hope. Oh, goodness. So this is a bunch of these spearmen. They're not going to do well against Penumbros.
Nope, you kind of need magic weapons or dust to dust.
Yeah.
And so like the Scythe Coner can handle these guys just fine, but the actual units aren't going to do very well. The Earth Elementals are interesting because that says to me that he thought there might be Death Mages here.
Wait, these guys don't naturally get 10 protection, do they?
Which guys?
The Penumbros?
Oh, no, they're getting protection from a mage. They've got fire vulnerability. See? That's bark skin.
Oh, in an adventure. I was like, where? I didn't see the mage. But okay, there we go. And Agartha is not usually flush with nature mages either. That's actually a very valuable mage to be using here. Oh, here she is.
Yeah, she's going to be very important against Pythium.
Right. I wouldn't really use her on casual raiding. Casting protection.
I think she was in the neighborhood site searching.
Okay. Super valuable mage. The question is, like, you obviously can't take... I mean, this is a great move, right? Because you killed the raiders. I hope he doesn't slam this into this fort, though.
Yeah, no, I don't think that's viable.
Yeah, but I mean, this was a brilliant move, catching it, because I didn't think there was anything in range. I think these guys might move 2 to get here.
Yeah, his regular troops can't get there in time, but the Penumbrals and the Naked Mages have decent map move.
Yeah. So that was a really clutch pickoff here, but we'll have to see. I think that, and this fort's cracked now, so I think this is just given up. Yeah.
I think as Utgard, you push most of your army into that farm and grab that, and then storm with minimum required force.
Yeah, probably. As a caster, I don't really remember what was in the fort though. So, but yeah, I agree with you. And Skelly Spam is really good at fort storming battles if you can keep the mages safe. And Seth Kona are really easy to keep safe because they can do a lot of self buffs before they start Skelly spamming.
Yeah, you basically just have some of your Garm herds as arrow bait, and then you cry a little tear when they die, and then you have most of your Garm herds on guard commander, and then you do have the skeletons do all the killing.
Yeah, because
or if you want to,
you can put these guys in like 3 tile, or 3 in a tile, and have them do luck and cheat fate and protection and skeletal body even, which is good against wall archers. And then you don't really have much to worry about, and body ethereal, and you don't have much to worry about from the wall archers, and you can just sit there and spam.
Yeah, other thing you can do is just cast body ethereal on some guard herds, and then they can go through the walls, and then you don't need to worry about the choke point. That's another way to just bust through.
Yeah.
So he has lots of options for how he could use a relatively small portion of that army to take the fort, and he should know that Agartha doesn't have a serious force in range.
Right.
So I think that you go take that farm, you bring enough Cyclona for advancing cast Dust to Dust, and most of your, actually, I'd say just most of that army, period, and then you can grab it before someone else like Marignon can go take the nice province.
Yeah. And Marignon's sleeping a little bit on this Agartha opportunity here. It doesn't look like they're thinking about war. They have pulled back a little bit from their initial kind of engagement into
Didn't
Atlantis.
Pythium comment on that they have an app that's cooling down?
Pythium.
Well, I know that Pythium does. Yeah.
I don't think Marignon has cooled down an app.
Surprise me if they did.
No, Marignon does have an app with Pythium, but with Agartha, but I don't think they've ended it. And
it wouldn't. If Pythium ended theirs, I think as Marignon, for these 1vx wars, it's often a good idea to just end them at the same time, so that everyone can go and get it together.
Yeah,
because he's finished with his Atlantis loot at this point.
Yeah, I'm actually a little sad that Agartha's dying, because it's a really hard nation to play really well in a really high skill game, and I was kind of looking forward to seeing like maybe there were some tricks and stuff I didn't know about.
I wanted to see the buffed cubes. But, there is lots of cool stuff that Agartha has just from their summon access. But there's just so many things that you have to worry about in the mid game that it's a very hard nation to pilot.
Yeah. So anyway, it looks like they're giving off dying vibes and people are starting to move in. Next up, we have the Jomen-Zabalba situation, and I don't think we have a message from either player here. So let's see if anything happened. Nope. They catch a Gath scout, and otherwise no movement. So clearly Zabalba does not think they have what it takes to hit the cap. The Ghost King is presumably sitting here patrolling the cap.
Yeah, that's my take as well.
But I think you can also HP route it if you kill all the other stuff.
But it also just dies to Ozlotls as per Jomen's testing. So I think as Zabalba, you need to have done the headshot 2 turns ago.
You know what I bet you they're doing? I bet you they're putting... Oh, no, but none of that's going to work because Dust to Dust. I was like, they could... with Jomen, you have a lot of point buffs, right? So they could have, potentially all the point buffs in the game on the Ghost King. And it's maybe then he can survive Aussies. But then he still dies to Dust, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that, I understand that you're a scaling nation with a scaling build. There's no reason that you should be assumed to win a 1v1 war. But I think that you already eked out enough of an advantage from his first 2 waves where he basically picked off a bunch of Jomen troops for free.
Right.
I think after that, you need to have gone for the capital.
Yeah.
And the longer you wait now, the closer that Jomen's going to get to parity until you start hitting, actual mid-game magic. And to give Zabalba credit, he does have a bunch of labs.
Yeah.
So he's going to be recruiting a ton of Wayob. And
I'm really interested to see their magic. Okay. They've had horrible research. Holy shit. I mean, they've been using the mages in the war, but it's starting to pick up now.
Yeah,
I was expecting it to be higher because they have... Normally nations that get forward and recruit access aren't this low.
Well, so part of it is basically just that he doesn't have an awake god, right? So like those
Yeah.
research graphs are going to be kind of skewed when you have like Pythium and Marignon kind of boosting up like the start of the game. So his delta looks, but the mages that he did recruit early, he had been deploying very frequently, right? He was using reanimation even during expansion.
Right.
And when he raided Jomen, he brought a bunch of them as well, right, in order to lead the Oslotls around.
Right.
So his mage count is really good, but his research is understandably poor when he's using his mages so much so early. So that might be it. He might be waiting for something like lifelong protection. Because, you know, you put like 5 or 6 of those in that army, and then suddenly you don't like have to worry about your bats.
Yeah, that might be what he's waiting for. That would explain a lot. Oh, what did he find down here? Veil of Law. Oh my goodness.
Oh, that's
what
decent.
A clutch pickup. I love gnomes, man.
Yeah, they're less impressive on Zabalba just because they do already have nature and earth access, and they have stealthy nature and earth access. But Vadiheim would love that.
Yeah, Vadiheim would kill for it. But it's still nice because this gives you higher nature casters in a way, because they can do strength and Gaia.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah. So well, with Zabalba doesn't tend to
do
need
communions. So but
yeah, I was also gonna say like for battlefield spells, you generally just use boosters because Thistle Maces and Armors of Twisting Thorns are relatively cheap.
Right.
So you can kind of cast all the nature stuff that you need to in the mid to late game without putting your way out in the Sabbath.
Yeah, that's a good point. But okay. Otherwise, not a lot of things happening over here.
Well, there are things happening. We just don't see them because we know that Vadiheim is planning on stabbing him.
Yeah, that too. Let's come down and see what happened in the Ulm Arco conflict. A ping here on Ulm's capital. They finally take this forest province you were saying they should hit. This fort's still not cracked, but the Ape siege train has moved out, and they've managed to catch here a squad of Ulmish raiders.
Yeah, body ethereal on those hard-hitting apes is going to be more than enough to let them take on rangers without a front line.
Yeah.
You don't even need that many ethereal or lucky apes in order to swing this. Yeah. I think he lost like 1, maybe 2.
Yeah. I wonder too, they ran really fast though.
Well, they died really fast.
It might be, they don't have a lot of archers don't have great morale in general, and then also fighting in hostile morale, or hostile dominion. So the ones with an experienced star have 10 morale, but the others have 9, and 9 is pretty bad, especially on squishy units.
Yeah, I mean, they just get massacred once the apes get into melee because the apes just hit hard enough, and the rangers don't have protection.
Yeah.
I appreciate that he's moving up those buff casters with his siege chaff train, though, because that keeps them safe from raiding parties, and it also kind of adds in. Oh, you don't let them use that side of the capital unless you got a second one, though. So those are multi-hero.
She retreats out. Yeah.
Oh, she's sight searching. Okay.
Yeah,
that's what she's doing. But yeah, those guys have inspiring research. So you generally want to leave one of those in your capital.
Dom spreader too. What a cool unit.
Yeah, they're a multi-hero, so Arco can get multiple of them, but you don't typically get that many with Luck 3. But interestingly, the way that multi-heroes work is that they roll for the multi-hero check after a hero roll fails. So Misfortune Nations actually see more multi-heroes than you might expect.
Okay, interesting. And then they've moved over here to take this. And Gath has killed the 2 Ettins, but loses a Garm. Not surprising. Otherwise, has mostly demilitarized the Jomen front.
Yeah, I mean, that was always very opportunistic from what I saw.
Ooh, Pit of Despair.
Oh, the Muse did retreat. Actually, the Muse could not have retreated into enemy territory because he owns all the territory.
Right.
There was this one bug where they could die trying to retreat across a river, even when you owned every adjacent province. But, yeah.
Okay. So, wait, I'm a little confused. I thought there was another, what happened to the stuff over here?
That's where it is. So the stuff that had taken the forest last turn is now in 79. Yeah, so that had been that northern raiding party. Then he moved some stuff up. Then he moved other stuff across.
I thought there was more stuff.
His army's on the fort for the most part. So he basically swung his army across to the right.
Cerulean warriors.
Yeah, no, he swung his army across to the right.
Okay. I swear to God, I feel like things disappeared.
The Cerulean warriors also show up as more than you would think because they're size 3. So I
Yeah.
think most of the Heart Companions are still on that fort. So
Yeah.
like he basically he shifted his raiding parties over. I think he could have gone for that cave, or just, kept,
Right.
broad advancing, grab as much territory as possible. I understand why he didn't. Like, you don't want to risk a mage.
Be interesting. Zabalba should take this cave and this fort.
Yeah.
Kind of.
They kind of need to get the memo that Ulm was properly dead, but I
Right.
agree. That's free vulture scraps, and given that Arco and he are soft allies against Jomen as well, like, it could be a little, oh, you get to vulture some Jomen stuff, I'll go vulture some Ulm stuff.
Right.
Because I'm sure that Arco would be very happy to trade that northern Ulm fort for that southern Jomen fort.
Yeah.
And, as someone who might want a long-term ally, I could see that being reasonable.
Yeah. Arthur doesn't strike me as a terribly reliable long-term ally, but maybe he is. Yeah. I mean, it would make sense if they split both of these nations. They kind of don't have a huge border. They just have a small border on the top and a small border on the bottom. Be nice to have those as like secured flanks. So it would be a super useful kind of long-term alliance, and then they can look at picking off people on other borders.
They also actually have really complementary paths.
Yeah.
Because Zabalba likes astral gear that they have trouble forging on their own, and Arco likes blood stuff, especially the blood nature booster.
Right. Okay, so I think that's that. Have we not covered any of the conflicts? I think we've done them all.
No, I think we got everyone.
Yeah, we're just over an hour, so that makes sense. Closing thoughts?
Yeah, no, I think that it looks like all the coalition wars are going to be wrapping up in favor of the coalition, and our future victim is looking to be Agartha.
Yeah.
The only true 1v1s that we saw were Jomen versus Shib and Arco versus Ulm. And the Ulm war is definitely very decisive, but the Zabalba Jomen thing looks like it might drag on for a bit.
Right. I think it could have been decisive, but it's not going to be. Yeah, I'm a little sad to see nobody throw off a coalition. I don't think people were necessarily picked out of pure weakness. I think there were other factors motivating the coalition war. So if last year's finals, it was more clear. Like somebody looked weak, and people just jumped on him. It's not really what happened this time, and because of that, I'm a little sad that nobody threw it off. Though Midgard's going to take a pound of flesh at least.
Yeah, Midgard's at least taking one player down with him.
Yep. Yeah. So cool. Thanks so much for joining me, Sai.
Absolutely. Thanks for hosting.
Players, viewers, thanks so much. See you guys next time.